What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name's CJ. This is Out of Bounds DFS, and in today's video, we're going to be going over this 11-game NBA slate over on PrizePicks. Tons of names to talk about, tons of projections to sort through. We're going to do it all. We're going to do it all right here, right now. So if this is your first time to the channel, welcome to Out of Bounds DFS. On this channel, we talk all things single-player daily fantasy sports. So I've done Monkey Knife Fight, I've done PrizePicks, I've done NBA, I've done NHL. We're dabbling in all kinds of stuff. So if you're into that sort of thing, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications so you don't miss any of the videos that I drop. I pretty much put a video out almost daily. So let's get into it, guys. We got to talk injury news. No wasting time. Joel Embiid out for the Philadelphia 76ers tonight. Ben Simmons out for the Philadelphia 76ers tonight. Devontae Graham returning for the Charlotte Hornets. Bam Adebayo out for the Miami Heat. Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, easy for me to say, both out for the Toronto Raptors. Aaron Gordon questionable for the Magic. He's inching toward a return. Kristaps Porzingis questionable. He might be rested on a back-to-back. Plus, his name keeps being brought up in trade rumors, so there's maybe a little bit of smoke there. Kevin Durant out for the Brooklyn Nets. Devin Booker questionable for the Phoenix Suns. Malik Beasley out for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Lauri Markkanen looking to return for the Chicago Bulls tonight. Marcus Smart looking to return for the Boston Celtics tonight. OG Anunoby out for the Toronto Raptors. They're really short-handed tonight and have been for a few games now. Delon Wright looking to possibly return for the Detroit Pistons. Evan Fournier may be out, it looks like, for the Orlando Magic. Daniel House Jr., he's out for the Houston Rockets. James Wiseman probable for the Golden State Warriors. Terrence Ross questionable for the Orlando Magic with left knee soreness. Jeez, we just can't catch a break. Tyrese Halliburton's going to be probable, on track to play for the Sacramento Kings. Eric Gordon questionable for the Houston Rockets. Cam Reddish out for the Atlanta Hawks. Derrick Rose out for the New York Knicks. And finally, Blake Griffin, the newest Brooklyn Net, is going to be out due to rest as he looks to be integrated and get acclimated with his brand new team. Ton of injury news there. So glad we buzzed through that. Now we can get down to business and start talking some projections. And first game up on the board is the Detroit Pistons versus the Charlotte Hornets. This game tips off at 7:10 p.m. over on PrizePicks. So let's go over to Roto Grinders, where I already have it preloaded with the FanDuel projections. We use FanDuel's projections because the scoring system on FanDuel is exactly the same for PrizePicks, so it makes it nice and easy for us who like to play NBA DFS over on PrizePicks. All right, and as has been the theme with yesterday's video and the previous few videos that I've done, we've been focusing on this DVA, defense versus archetype. It's kind of like DVP, or defense versus position, but a little more granular, a little more detailed and specific. So hopefully this continues to be a handy tool and help us out in determining whether we should go under or over on some of these projections we're seeing over on PrizePicks. So first guy that's going to stand out to me is Terry Rozier, and he's projected at 32 over on PrizePicks today. They've got him at 31.69, so between that 31-32 point range looks to be the right place here for Terry Rozier. Now, of course, we mentioned at the top of the video, Devontae Graham, he's looking to return to the Charlotte Hornets, so they're going to have a bit of a logjam in that guard position, but news came out that Lamelo Ball will continue to start for the Charlotte Hornets, so it'll be interesting to see if they just slowly ease Devontae Graham back in, how it impacts Terry Rozier, how it impacts Lamelo Ball, maybe even Gordon Hayward might be impacted. But anyway, Terry Rozier is in a very good DVA spot tonight. Let's just see how his last 5 games have played out. Well, going back to his 5th one here, he went under. Here's another under, and then his last 2 games, he went over by quite a bit. Now, as I mentioned, there's a logjam here in the Charlotte Hornets backcourt, so you got to be careful with Terry Rozier and taking the over. This is probably a situation, despite how good it looks on paper in terms of matchup versus this Detroit Pistons team, that I'm probably going to take a step away from it and see how it all plays out with Devontae Graham re-entering the rotation, with Lamelo Ball, the news saying that he's going to stay in the starting lineup. So this is probably one where I'm going to take a step back, but I wanted to point it out because he is in a very good plus DVA matchup. let's see who else is out there for us today on PrizePicks. Delon Wright, he's a guy who is looking to make his return to the Detroit Pistons tonight. He's not on the PrizePicks board, but pay attention to how he performs tonight. That might be a situation to potentially monitor. Anybody else standing out in terms of a good overplay based on matchup? Doesn't really look like it, guys. And as we get down the list here, you got guys like Saddiq Bey. He is in a situation where they've got him projected for 22.7 on Roto Grinders. He's 24 over on PrizePicks, so he'd be a candidate for an under. Looks like a tough DVA situation or matchup for him. That would be one that I'd probably take the under on. Jeremy Grant, he's projected at 36. Again, a guy who is in a negative DVA spot. But let's talk Jeremy Grant real quick. He's at 36 over on PrizePicks. 34.77 over on Roto Grinders. So let's see how Grant's been doing, because his last couple of weeks before the All-Star break, I mean, they were just very volatile, very up, very down. It was really hard to get a read on Jeremy Grant and how he would perform from a game-to-game standpoint. So we go back 5 games in his game log. You can see he went well under here with just 27.9 fantasy points. 34 puts him under, 35.4 puts him under. He misses this game against New Orleans, comes back, goes over 36, and then 29.6, his last game before the All-Star break, which was back on February 28th. So, as you can see, it's been kind of a situation where clicking the under on Jeremy Grant's projection of 36 tonight has worked out more than the over has worked out. So he's went over just once, went under 4 times. Looking back here, I don't see any recent games of him versus this Charlotte Hornets squad, so let's jump ahead and look at some of the other metrics for Jeremy Grant. He's expected to play about 34 minutes tonight. He is a versatile forward. The Hornets have done a pretty good job limiting versatile forwards in terms of fantasy points per game allowed. They're allowing just 27 fantasy points per game, so tough matchup. Playing over 36 minutes per game, though, so that's working in his favor, and his fantasy points per minute are over 1, and his usage rating's over 25, so very good numbers there for Jeremy Grant. He's just been a tough guy to trust recently, so I'd probably lean toward the under based on his last 5 game logs and some of these metrics that we're looking at here. Let's wrap it up by talking Lamelo Ball real quick. He's projected at 40. He's at 39.95. Not much of an edge here when you're comparing Roto Grinders projections to PrizePicks. Both of them kind of land on that 39 to 40 point mark. In his last 5, he's been at 39.8, 39.4, so that's 2 unders, 46.8, 61.2, 2 big overs, and then 36.9 in his last game before All-Star break. So he's got 3 games in his last 5 where he's went under, 2 games where he's went over. So the under has been the way to go. Again, this is another one of them situations with Lamelo Ball where he's in a negative DVA position. You got a guy like Devontae Graham who's re-entering the rotation for the Hornets. I know LaMelo's been named the starter, but this might be a whole situation that is just better left, untouched. Just don't even go here, just avoid the situation altogether. I mean, the totals in this game are pretty good. The spread, not bad at just 4.5 points, but you just don't know what you're going to get here. So that about sums it up in my thoughts for this game. Let's move on to the next one, which is a much more exciting game, much better in terms of fantasy potential here. We got the likes of Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Kemba Walker for the Boston Celtics versus the Brooklyn Nets of Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and we got Mr. Joe Harris on the board. So let's go over to Roto Grinders, turn these games on, and first thing that stands out to me is the fact that these are super high totals here. You're looking at over 232 combined points here. So love that from a upside position, an upside standpoint in terms of real life points, rebounds, assist opportunities, and of course fantasy points. The more real life points that these teams score, the more chances that we have for big time performances from some of these players. And another thing that stands out is this game looks like it's going to stay close. It looks like it's going to stay competitive. The spread is 2.5 points. So fantastic spread as well. So let's start looking at some of these DVA situations here. See if we can find an edge, over or under. We don't always have to play the overs. I know some of you think that playing the overs is more fun. I agree. I like rooting guys on rather than rooting against them. So let's see if any of these DVA spots really jump out to us. Now, first guy that's standing out is Kyrie Irving. Now, he's projected at 47 on PrizePicks, 44.82 on RotoGrinders. If we're feeling generous, we can round up, call it 45, but still the under looking like the way to go here at first glance. But of course, we don't just go off of what the book's cover is. We dig inside and look through the pages of the book and try to find out what's really going on beyond the surface. So if we do that, we look at his last 5 games here. He's went over 47, under, over, misses this game, comes back and goes over, and then right before All-Star break, he goes under against Houston. So in his last 5 games, guys, he's got 3 games where he's went over 47, 2 games where he's went under 47. So the overs have been more kind to Kyrie. Now, of course, there's a little bit of extra motivation here potentially. We know that Kyrie Irving spent a little time in Boston. He was a Celtic at one point. So maybe he comes out looking to play well. Now, I don't have any recent game logs of Kyrie versus Boston, so let's just jump ahead here and talk about the rest of his stats. They got him at 36 minutes tonight. He is a combo guard. Now, what stands out to me is the fact that Boston doesn't guard combo guards very well. Now, you factor in that this is Kyrie Irving we're discussing, and he's not just any old Joe Schmo combo guard. No, he's one of the better combo guards in the league. So the fact that he is in a plus DVA, just a slight plus DVA spot, in terms of this average allowed by the Celtics being a little bit higher than his fantasy score on PrizePicks, well, I like that. Plus the narrative of him taking on the Celtics again, I think I like that even more. Playing over 35 minutes per game, 1.27 fantasy points per minute, and his usage rating is at 29.5. So very, very good situation here for Kyrie Irving. Now, James Harden, also a combo guard. He's another guy that you can look at. He's projected at 55. If you caught James Harden earlier in the day or last night, he was at 52 fantasy points. So the 52 compared to RotoGrinders at 53.76, well, the over, if you guys took the over, which most of you did on the 52, would make a lot of sense here. Now, the 55, a little more tricky. On 55, RotoGrinders likes the under, but let's look at James Harden in his recent games and see what he's been up to. So if we go back to 5 games here, 62.2 puts him over 55 by quite a bit. Then he falls short here at just 38.3 in a pretty advantageous matchup against the Orlando Magic. 43.4 in his next one against Dallas, falls short again. 75.3 and 66. So he's went over in 3 games, under in 2, but he continues to put up pretty consistent, reliable fantasy performances. So James Harden's expected to play about 37 minutes tonight. We've already mentioned this is a good spot in terms of DVA for James Harden. Good matchup here on paper. 37.6 minutes played per game, 1.38 fantasy points per minute, and his usage rating over 29. Very, very good usage. So James Harden in a pretty good spot here. The 55, though, has been a number that's given him some trouble. Like I said, got 3 overs, 2 unders, so keep that in mind when you go to lock James Harden into your lineups at 55. Moving down the list here, Kemba Walker is a guy who is really popping off here. Now, he's projected at 33 over on PrizePicks. He is at 33.5, let's call it, over on RotoGrinders. So that would be a slight edge or a slight favorite to taking the over on Kemba Walker. And, you know, with the game totals being what they are, super high, and the fact that this game looks like it's going to stay close and competitive, I think the over makes a lot of sense here for a lot of these guys. But Kemba Walker, we got to look at his game logs because they've been a little spotty, a little up and down, inconsistent, unreliable. Versus Dallas, 30.3 puts him under. He misses the next game against Atlanta, comes back dropping 46, 42, and 37. 3 games in a row where he goes over tonight's projection of 33. And then finally his last game versus the Toronto Raptors before the All-Star break puts up just 27.4. Didn't take quite as many shots. And the shots that he did take, well, they just weren't falling. He went 4 for 11 in that game. So Kemba, he's got to get his real life points in order for him to hit overs for you. And tonight looks like a situation where he could do just that. This Brooklyn Nets team, not very good defensively in terms of their backcourt. James Harden, Kyrie Irving, not notable defenders against opposing combo guards. And, this could be a situation where Kemba really eats here. Brooklyn giving up over 46 fantasy points per game to combo guards. 46 is much higher than his projection at 33. So to say that there's a bit of an upside or ceiling here for Kemba Walker in this spot, I think is a fair statement to make. Now, he's playing just 30 minutes per game. His fantasy points per minute are over 1, and his usage is over 28. So those are very good numbers for him. Marcus Smart will be coming back. I think he's projected to play 25 minutes tonight. So I don't know how much that impacts Kemba Walker and the rest of these Boston Celtics and their fantasy output, but it's just something else to keep in mind for sure. Anybody else standing out in terms of an overplay? Well, you got Jason Tatum. He's been struggling lately. He's in a bit of a negative DVA spot. And the fact that the difference here of 46 on PrizePicks versus this 41.71 on RotoGrinders, well, that's pretty noteworthy. I think it's worth talking about here. So they like a big under on the PrizePicks projection of 46. Let's just look at his game logs and see if that makes sense here. All right, so it's been a bit of an up and down situation for Jason Tatum lately. If we go back 5 games, 20.7, terrible game there. 27.8, another terrible game. 50.1, he bounces back nicely, going over tonight's projection of 46. And you got 30.5, a big under, and 51.9 comes back versus Toronto with another great performance. So in his last 5, guys, he's got 3 games where he's went 30 fantasy points or less, big time unders. And then he's got 2 games where he's went for 50 or more. So been a tough guy to figure out lately. Maybe he just needed some time off. Maybe he comes back tonight, reinvigorated, ready to go. It's a good game here against this Brooklyn Nets squad. And, hopefully he gets up for this game and is ready to play. But as I mentioned, RotoGrinders, they like the heavy under here versus PrizePicks. And the DVA is not a very good one for him. Brooklyn allowing just 31 fantasy points per game to versatile forwards. Now he's playing over 35 minutes per game, 1.23 fantasy points per minute. And his usage is over 30. Very, very good elite usage rating for Jason Tatum. So looking like the under might be the way to go just based on game logs and based on the DVA, the matchup for Jason Tatum. Moving down the line here, anybody else standing out? No DeAndre Jordan in terms of fantasy points on the board today. I think they've got him up over there on the single stats for rebounds. Joe Harris, he is in a bit of a plus DVA spot, so that might be a way to go on Joe Harris taking the over. That should be a close one. Jaylen Brown, he's in a pretty negative DVA situation here, and RotoGrinders is just pretty low in general on these 2 big stars here for Boston, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They got Jaylen Brown at 39 on PrizePicks. He's at 35.68 on RotoGrinders. So again, going under here on Jaylen Brown might be the way to go. And if you look at his last 5 game logs, it seems like him and Tatum have some kind of pact where they were just ready to stink up the joint. They agreed that maybe they just weren't going to come out and play for Boston. I don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but they're definitely struggling. There's no doubt about that. So 47.9 puts him well over 39. Then he drops down to 30, 26, 29, and 35.4. So he has went under 39 in 4 straight games, guys. Yes, this game script, this game situation is a lot better for him, but hard to trust this dude to go over based on what we're seeing in his last 5 games. So maybe another situation where the All-Star break was much needed and he was able to get some rest and able to kind of recharge the battery pack. But tonight, 35 minutes is his projected minute total. He is a scoring wing. Brooklyn holding scoring wings in check to just 21 fantasy points per game. He's playing over 33 minutes a night, 1.16 fantasy points per minute, and a usage rating of over 29. So very good situation there. Enough about that game. Let's see who we got up on the board next here. The next one's going to be the Atlanta Hawks versus the Toronto Raptors. We talked about it at the top of today's video. The Toronto Raptors are pretty depleted. It's basically Kyle Lowry, Norman Powell, Chris Boucher. They're going to be leading the way for Toronto. Then on the Atlanta side, you got Trey Young, Clint Capella, John Collins, the three guys that we've seen for quite some time now for Atlanta. Nothing's really changing for their side of things. Now the game totals 223, 224 fantasy or real life points, I should say, combined for these two teams. So not out of this world like the last game we talked about, but pretty good totals in general. Let's start looking at DVA situations, and the first one that's really stepping out and showing up here is Kyle Lowry. Now he's projected at 43 on PrizePicks. They got him at 46.98 on RotoGrinders. So we rounded up, call it 47. Well, that puts him 4 points over versus where he's projected on PrizePicks, and it's hard to argue with that. Atlanta, very generous, very giving to opposing combo guards. They're allowing almost 59 fantasy points per game. So to call this a plus spot is an understatement. This is a great spot, a smash spot for Kyle Lowry here, especially when you figure there's no Siakam, no Fred VanVleet. This should be Kyle Lowry's opportunity to just ball out and do whatever the heck he wants. Now, if we go back here to 5 games ago, of course, Siakam, Lowry, we're in the line, or Siakam and VanVleet, we're in the lineup here back on February 16th versus Milwaukee. So the output for Kyle Lowry is to be expected to be lower here at just 38.2. So that's an under. Then he goes on to miss 4 games, comes back 47.4, 52.2, 2 big overs, 39.8, doesn't quite hit the over on 43, and then 45.1. So in his last 5 games, he's went over 3 times and under twice. But again, as I mentioned, all the way back February 16th, the Raptors were a lot healthier then than they are now. So looking here, I don't see any previous game logs against Atlanta, so let's just jump ahead and talk minutes. He's expected to play 37 minutes. I've already mentioned, smash spot. Great matchup. Can't ask for anything better than this. Atlanta, the number 1 most giving, most generous team to combo guards like Kyle Lowry. He's playing about 35 minutes per game, over 1 fantasy point per minute, and a usage rating of 23. But those numbers go way up when you take Siakam and Fred VanVleet out of the lineup. So I think there's a lot of potential here for Kyle Lowry to eclipse 43 fantasy points. And I'm probably leaning toward the over on him tonight. Next guy that's standing out here is going to be Trey Young. Now, Trey Young, he is at 46 fantasy points over on PrizePicks. They've got him at 44.44, the fours. Which puts him slightly under 46, but let's look at his recent games and see how he's been performing. In his last 5, he's got a bunch of unders in here, but he's went over, let's see, twice and under 3. So 47.3 against Boston, 33, 37, 31, and then a 52.8 against Orlando to finish things off before the All-Star break. So, going under on Trey Young has been the look recently, but he's got the upside. We already know that when this guy's shot is falling, anything can happen. Now, he's expected to play about 34 minutes tonight. Combo guards against this Raptor squad have been allowed 46.32 fantasy points per game on average. So, good spot here. I would call it just a very teeny tiny slight little bump up here for Trey Young in terms of matchup. He's playing about 35 minutes per game, 1.28 fantasy points per minute, and this usage rating is lovely, 34.13. So probably leaning toward the over on Trey Young for me personally, but let's move down the line here and see what else is sticking out. Chris Boucher, he is at 33 on PrizePicks. They got him at 30 over on RotoGrinders. This is a plus DVA spot for him though, so there's some merit here to taking the over on Boucher. Anything else that's looking good? Clint Capella, he is in a tough spot here against the Toronto Raptors. Projected for 40 on PrizePicks, 40.7 on RotoGrinders, but post-up bigs have been limited to under 25 fantasy points per game, so this could be a tough spot. I believe he'll be most likely matched up against Aaron Baines, who's a big, strong, scrapping lad. So perhaps he gives Clint Capella some trouble tonight. Anybody else jumping off here? Norman Powell, he is in a very negative DVA spot. He is at 38 on PrizePicks, just 34.69 on Roto Grinders. He is considered to be a shooting wing, and shooting wings against Atlanta have struggled, just 17.66 fantasy points per game allowed. So either they're not facing very good shooting wings in Atlanta, or the ones that they are facing, they're putting the clamps on them. So gives me a little bit of cause for concern when trying to target the over on Norman Powell. I'd probably lean toward taking the under in this matchup. All right, enough of that game. Let's move on to the next one here. We got a lot to talk about still. This next one, a little bit of a battle here in the Sunshine State where I reside. I'm in Tampa, but got the Orlando Magic, the Miami Heat, two Florida teams duking it out. And no Bam Adebayo tonight. That was the most notable news from the Miami side of things. So the totals here, Miami 110, Orlando 101. Not a ton of points expected to be scored from these two teams, but the spread being 9 kind of makes me just want to back away from most of the guys in this game, especially if you're looking to take overs on anyone. Probably not going to be a good game for many over performances, but let's start digging here and seeing what stands out in terms of overs, unders, and everything in between. So the first guy that's really catching my eye is going to be Tyler Herro. So he's at 30 fantasy points over on PrizePicks. Pretty big number, especially when you compare it to Roto Grinders, who has him at 24.61. Even if we round it up, call it 25, puts him 5 points under his projection on PrizePicks. But working in his favor is the fact that the Orlando Magic just absolutely stink at guarding opposing combo guards, which is what they classified Tyler Herro as. So if you believe in that sort of thing, well, this is a very good situation for Tyler tonight. Let's look at his game logs and see how he's been performing. All right, so it's been a little ugly here for Tyler Herro lately. We got to go all the way back to February 18th to talk about his 5th game in his game log. 36.3 fantasy points there. Puts him well over the 30, but then he comes back here at 13.3, puts him well under. Then he misses 3 games in a row, comes back 21.4, 27.5, and just 5.9, and he's getting minutes. It's not that he's not getting minutes, but he's just not doing a whole lot with the minutes that he's been afforded. Now, no Bam Adebayo, maybe that opens up some usage, some shots, and things like that for him. But in the last 5 guys, it's just been really hard to trust taking the over on Tyler Herro. He's gone under in 4 games and over in just 1. So looking at the game logs, no previous game logs against the Magic in recent memory, so we can jump ahead here and talk minutes. Expected to get 28 minutes of run tonight. I've already mentioned the Magic, very giving to opposing combo guards. 32.7 minutes per game is his season average. 0.88 fantasy points per minute and 22.5 usage rating. So maybe those numbers, as I mentioned, go up a little bit with Bam Adebayo being out. But not getting a good read here on Tyler Herro. The projections on both sites here are just way different. Although this is a good spot for him. So if you have a hunch about Tyler Herro, I'd probably lean toward taking the over just based on the DVA. But otherwise, fade the situation. Leave it alone. Don't touch it. Go somewhere else and look for a better situation here. Now, speaking of good situations, this is a guy who's going to probably step into a ton of minutes tonight. Evan Fournier is expected to be out for the Orlando Magic. Of course, Aaron Gordon's out. Jonathan Isaac's out. All the good guys are out. Markelle Fultz, you name it. I think Cole Anthony's still out. So Michael Carter-Williams should be healthy and should get as many minutes as his little body can handle. Now, his projection is at 28. He is at 26.95. So somewhere between 27 and 28 fantasy points. These sites seem to agree. Now, if we get into the game logs here and talk MCW, well, they're okay, I guess, for a guy who's typically just been a backup for the last several years of his career. But we go back to his 5th game, which was February 23rd against the Pistons. 26.7 puts him under on with 16.5, 16.9 under, 37.6, and 43.2 though. Finishes out the first half of the season before the All-Star break very strong here in his last 2 games. Now, this guy at one point was a very high draft pick by the Philadelphia 76ers. Yes, I know it seems like it was an eternity ago, but he's got a little game, okay? He could play a little bit, and he showed that in his last couple. Now, his matchup tonight against the Heat is a very good one. It's a plus DVA spot, no doubt about it. The Heat are giving up over 51 fantasy points per game to combo guards. And as I mentioned, with all of the injuries piling up for the Orlando Magic, he's just going to have to be out there playing major minutes. And they've got him projected to play 32 tonight. 0.85 fantasy points per minute and a usage rating of 19.2. Those numbers will be on the rise if guys like Terrence Ross, Evan Fournier, so on, are still out like they're scheduled to be. So let's move on down the line here. Now, they got Aaron Gordon, but he's questionable, and he's not on the PrizePicks board, so we don't have to talk about him. Anyone else here? Kelly Olynyk, are you on the... Kelly Olynyk is on the board. He's on the board tonight for the Miami Heat. With no Bam Adebayo, Kelly Olynyk will be playing more minutes. His projections at 26 on PrizePicks, 30.32 over on RotoGrinders. So let's look at Olynyk real quick. This is a guy that we just don't talk about hardly ever, if ever. And in his last 5, 20.4, 14.5, 18. So 3 games in a row where he's went under this 26 figure. And then he comes back here with 2 games where he's went over 29.2 and 40.5. So interesting little game logs there for Mr. Olynyk. I already mentioned no Bam Adebayo, so his minutes will be up tonight. They've got him playing 33 minutes in this one. Versatile Bigs versus the Magic. Doing okay. 25.84 fantasy points per game by Versatile Bigs versus this Magic squad. Olynyk, 0.87 fantasy points per minute, and his usage is at 16.5. So maybe those numbers go up just a bit without Bam Adebayo in there and with Olynyk playing more than he typically does. So the over looking like the way to go for Kelly O in this one. And finally, we're going to talk Nick Vuchevich real quick. Just going to touch on him. He's at 46.5 on PrizePicks, 46.41. These sites are almost in total agreement that 46 to 47 fantasy points is where he's going to be tonight. Versatile Bigs versus this Heat squad. Heat allowing just 22.5 fantasy points per game to Versatile Bigs. But without Bam in there, I really don't see anybody getting in Vucevich's way. Olynyk's not going to stop him. So who does that really leave? Are we worried about anybody else in this lineup slowing Vuchevich down? I'm personally not. This is one of those situations where I take all the numbers, I ball them up, and I throw them in the trash can and just, go off of the talent here. It's Nick Vuchevich, the best player on the Orlando Magic, versus a Miami Heat front court that probably won't offer too much resistance here. Let's just call it what it is. But enough of that game. There are much better, more exciting situations that we should talk about. And the next one that's standing out to me, it's going to be this New York Knicks Milwaukee Bucks game. Now, this game is expected to be a blowout. So I would call this a red in terms of blowout risk, blowout potential. Don't expect anyone from these from either side of this game to get a full run of minutes here. I will be surprised if somehow the Knicks turn this into a competitive game and stay around for 4 quarters of basketball in this one. So right off the top here, DVA, we of course are going to keep talking about that. Now, Drew Holiday's kind of an interesting guy. Now, the DVA is looking fantastic. Of course, we know if you've been playing any daily fantasy sports, daily fantasy basketball, New York Knicks cannot guard opposing guards for crap. So this is a good spot for Drew Holiday. He's projected at 23 on PrizePicks. They got him at 28.11 here on RotoGrinders, so a big difference. They like a 5+ point over does RotoGrinders versus PrizePicks. So this is a spot, a guy worth talking about. Now, leading up to the All-Star break, Drew Holliday had missed a ton of games and was working his way back into the lineup, working his minutes back up here. So you can see against the Clippers, he played just 17, 18 minutes there. And then he comes back here against Memphis, 22.58. So his minutes are starting to climb. He's starting to get more and more time out on the floor. So 4.5 fantasy points, 9.7 fantasy points, and 26.9. Maybe he gets 20 plus minutes tonight. If he does, then I think I do like the over on Drew Holliday here. They've got him projected to play 30. I don't think he gets 30. I think he's somewhere in the mid-20 range. But combo guards against this Knicks team are getting about 48 fantasy points per game. So fantastic plus situation. Great matchup here for Drew. 31 minutes per game when he's healthy. 1.09 fantasy points per minute. And the usage rating's over 21. So pretty good when you consider he plays alongside of Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton. Having a usage rating of over 20. Not too shabby here for Drew Holliday, who was absolutely balling, by the way, for the Milwaukee Bucks before he missed that string of games. So let's see if there's anybody else that stands out here. Who do we got on the Knicks side? We got Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, and Alfred Payton. Randle is projected for 44.5 on PrizePicks, 42.65. He's in a negative matchup here, but he's just been so good this season. This could be one of those spots where you simply just take the over if you feel like the game blows out and that Randle doesn't get the full run of minutes. But he's been pretty rock solid at about 36 minutes per game, up to 37 minutes per game. So, betting on the under on him is a tough pill to swallow. Anybody else that makes some sense here? Chris Middleton's been a guy who's just been struggling. I mean, they got him at 37 tonight. He's at 36.5 on PrizePicks. Let's look at his game logs and see what Middleton's been doing here. In his last 5 games, he's went under, over, under, over. So he's went under 37 in 3 out of 5. So like I said, taking the under on Middleton has just been working out more often than not. So that could be a way to go here, especially in this negative DVA spot for him. Not a good matchup whatsoever. Alfred Payton, he's projected at 23 on PrizePicks. They got him at 24.31. No Derrick Rose tonight, so maybe Alfred Payton gets a bit more playing time. Not a bad fantasy producer when he's out there. 0.84 fantasy points per minute and 22.62 usage rating. So, not sure that I even want to mess around with any of these guys, to be honest with you. It looks like there's just going to be a blowout, and a lot of these guys are probably going to go under, and not seeing a super good edge on most of these dudes in this game. So yeah, let's go ahead and move along here to the next one. Next one we got is a better one here. More exciting talent, more exciting matchup. Although not looking like it's going to stay super competitive either, to be honest with you. So the Minnesota Timberwolves taking on the New Orleans Pelicans. Much higher totals, though. So these two teams combining for over 230 points. 238 combined points is the projection here. So loving the team totals. Spread is a little bit more worrisome. I put it in the orange to red category in terms of blowout risk or potential here. You're looking at an 8-point spread, guys. So don't count on this one staying super close. But let's go ahead and start digging in and seeing what's standing out and what's not. Do we have Eric Bledsoe on the board? Nope. We've got Zion. We've got Brandon Ingram. We got Lonzo Ball. So let's talk Zion Williamson. He's in a decent spot here. He was playing fantastic basketball leading into the All-Star break. And his projections at 47 on PrizePicks, 45 today over on RotoGrinders. So they like a slight under, but let's see how many times Zion's been able to go over or under on this 47. If we go back 5 games, he went over here at 49.7, 53.6 puts him over, 46.3 under, 42.5 under, and 52.3 over. So 3 games where he's went over 47, 2 games where he's went under. So the overs have been working out here for Zion. No previous game logs, at least not recently, against the Minnesota Timberwolves. We'll move ahead and discuss minutes. They got him projected to play 34. He's a versatile forward. Minnesota allowing 32 38.25 fantasy points per game. So not a smash spot here for Zion Williamson, but he's got the kind of talent where he can overcome a potentially bad matchup. He's playing over 32 minutes per game, 1.25 fantasy points per minute, and the usage rating's at 28.22. So solid situation for Zion. Going over, been working out more often than the under. Great totals. I do worry about the blowout, but hopefully the Minnesota Timberwolves can find a way to stick around in this one. But listen, they're pretty depleted. No Malik Beasley, no D'Angelo Russell. I mean, those are two of their more talented guys, and without them in the lineup, it's going to be tough sledding hanging around with this talented New Orleans Pelicans team. Anyone else jumping out here? Well, not really loving much here. Brandon Ingram, I think he is in a good spot. He's projected for 42. They've got him at 40.45. I think I like him more for like single stat. I think I took him over his single stat for points. So I think that he has a better situation in terms of points than he does maybe hitting his fantasy projection. So I probably like him better for single stat stuff. Anthony Edwards is in an interesting spot. He's projected at 32. He's at 31.5 on Roto Grinders. Wouldn't call this a plus DVA situation for him, but still not a bad matchup whatsoever. And he's a young guy, so even if the game does blow out, I expect Ant Edwards to be out there getting pretty big minutes tonight. They got him projected at 34, so liking the way that one looks. I think Karl-Anthony Towns got a little bit of a tough matchup on his hands tonight against Steven Adams. DVA for him, Pelicans allowing just 25.4 fantasy points per game to opposing versatile bigs like Karl-Anthony Towns. So they got him at 49 on PrizePicks. He's at 47.2 on Roto Grinders. So I think taking the under makes some sense here on Karl-Anthony Towns. Ricky Rubio, he's a guy I like, not in terms of fantasy points. As you can see, they're both at 31.5, both sites that is. Where I like Rubio tonight is his potential for assists in a single stat assist situation. I do like taking the over on Rubio. I think he was at 8.5 assists earlier. I think that makes a little sense, taking the over. He's not a big time scorer. He gets a lot of assists though, and there should be plenty to go around with the totals being what they are and the spread being what it is. So other than that, Lonzo Ball, not in a very good spot. Distributor point guards, by the way, anytime you see these DVA numbers for these pass first point guards like Rubio, like Lonzo Ball, you never see a DVA that's just like through the roof. There's not really, I think, a ton of guards out there that fit the pass first point guard mold anymore. And I think that kind of works against some of these pass first guys like Ball and Rubio. So the DVA for these guys, you can kind of throw it out the window a little bit. I just don't think that there's very good information, very good data that supports the DVA that you're seeing for these distributor point guards. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for this one. Let's continue on and see what else we've got. Well, we talked about Philadelphia being pretty short-handed tonight. No Joel Embiid, MVP frontrunner in my opinion, and no Ben Simmons for the Philadelphia 76ers. So, of course, that's going to be a big boost for the likes of Tobias Harris, mainly. Then you got Dwight Howard, who's going to see a ton more playing time in minutes. Seth Curry, very shot dependent. If his shots are falling, he's going to hit this 29 fantasy points number. He's going to go over 29. But the shots got to be dropping for him. He's shot dependent. He's got to be making his shots. If not, he's going to struggle. But let's go ahead and start looking at this game here. Totals are looking great. You've got a combined total of over 228 real-life points here by these two teams. So approaching 230, really close to 230, which is my favorite number when looking at game totals here. The spread is super close too. You're looking at 3.5 points. 3.5 points. I think I'm doing that right. Anyway, good spread, good total. Liking the way things are shaping up here. Now, the first guy that stands out to me is going to be Coby White. Coby White's at 28 fantasy points over on PrizePicks. They got him projected for 29.16 on Roto Grinders. Combo guards against Philly are getting 50 almost 54 fantasy points per game. So Coby White's been playing pretty good basketball in his last few games. We'll open up his game logs and you guys can see what I'm talking about here. Going back 5 games, he's got a 42, way over 28, 31.8 or 31.6 puts him over. 28 is a push, funny enough, 33.5 and 33.9. So in his last 5 games, he's gone over in 4 of them and he's got 1 push. And of course, a push is better than doing the opposite of taking the over or taking the under. So we'll take a push if it comes down to it. But overall, you can see that he's been playing very, very good basketball. No previous game log. Oh, wait, I take that back. There is a previous game log against Philly. Back on February 19th, he played 26.9 minutes, and he ended up with 23.7 fantasy points. Now, comparing his minutes back then, February 19th, to his last several games here, he's playing well over 30 minutes a night now. So his minutes are much, much higher. So therefore, his fantasy production should also be much higher. So I like this spot here for Coby White, and I think that this is a good place to take an over, especially when you consider that, man, Philly is just bleeding points, fantasy points to opposing combo guards. Minutes per game, 33.2 on the season, 0.87 fantasy points per minute, and his usage rating is over 23. So I think going over on Coby White makes a ton of sense in this matchup. Tobias Harris, we mentioned him earlier. He's going to be the lead dog, the number 1 option here for this Philadelphia 76ers team. He's projected at 45 on PrizePicks, 42.37 on Roto Grinders. And, I do like the matchup here. I think that, obviously without Embiid, without Simmons, Harris is just going to have free reign to do whatever he wants with the basketball. So hopefully he pulls through. He's another guy who is kind of more scoring dependent. He's got to be scoring the basketball in order to get up to this 45 fantasy point number. But let's just take a look at his last few games and see how he's been doing. Now, you got to keep in mind that Embiid and Simmons were likely healthy for a lot of these games. So you can expect that his production will go up now that those guys are out of the picture. So 42.9, and that was against Chicago. So not a bad performance, especially considering that, the other guys, Embiid and Simmons, were most likely healthy. 34.3, 46.9, 14.4, misses a couple games, comes back and drops 43. So in his last 5 games, he has went under 4 times and over just once. But take those with a grain of salt, as I mentioned. Whole different cast of characters and different dynamic now. Playing 36 minutes tonight, versatile forwards have gotten over 37 fantasy points per game against this Bulls squad. 1.09 fantasy points per minute and 22.85 usage rating. His usage shoots up. Him and Shake Milton, their usage ratings shoot up over 30 without Embiid and without Simmons in the lineup. So that number will be on the rise tonight. Continuing down the line here, Dwight Howard projected at 33 on PrizePicks, just 27.3 over on Roto Grinders. So that would be a situation to take an under according to Roto Grinders. The DVA not looking very good for Dwight. He's going to be facing Wendell Carter Jr. So could be a tough game for Dwight. 23.84 fantasy points per game allowed by this Bulls team to post up bigs like Dwight Howard. Seth Curry, he is in a position where they've got him at 29 on PrizePicks. They got him at 30 on Roto Grinders. Again, if his shot's falling, it's going to work out for Seth Curry. If his shot's not falling, though, he's not going to get there. He just doesn't get a lot of assists, rebounds, steals, blocks, and all that other fun stuff that help bolster your fantasy production. So don't really like him unless you want to roll the dice and hope that his shot is falling and going down. The next guy is Zach LaVine. He's at 42, 42.23. Not much of an edge, not much of a difference here. So, yeah, I mean, Zach LaVine can ball out, but this DVA spot looks like a negative matchup for him. So probably not going to go much Zach LaVine in this situation. All right, let's move on to the next game here. And it's Dallas versus OKC. Dallas just played last night, so this is a back-to-back for them. The break's over, Dallas Mavericks. yeah, it's time to get back to work. Sorry about the back-to-back, but it is what it is. Let's see if anything's standing out. We got Luka, Kristaps Porzingis, and that's it. That's it for the Dallas side. Just 2 players for Dallas, 2 players for OKC in this one. So let's see what we can find out here. Brighten things up a little bit. Boom. All right. Luka in a good DVA spot here against Oklahoma City. He's at 54 fantasy points, 53 over on PrizePicks or on Roto Grinders. So they like the under on Roto Grinders. And this game doesn't seem like it's going to be very high scoring. Dallas 112.5, OKC 107. So you're talking about, a few points spread here. And OKC's just not been very good this season. So let's look at his game logs and see what Luka's been doing. It's not pretty. Guys, I got to be honest with you. 30.6 puts him well under the 54. 49.7 puts him under. 54.5, a slight over. Then he misses a game, comes back, 21.6. And then last night, 48.4. So he has not been hitting 54 with great regularity here. He's got just one game in his game log where he's went over in his last 5. He's got 4 unders. So the under has just been the way to go here against the oh, wait. I take that back. Okay, they snuck in the All-Star game here against Team Durant. He had 21.6 fantasy points. So we take that one out, but let's go back and redo this. 55 puts him over, under, over, under. So a little bit better. 2 overs, 3 unders in his last 5. They snuck that one in there. I'm surprised they put that in his game log. Anyway, Luka's been struggling. That's the key. 36 minutes tonight. He is a combo guard. Combo guards against OKC. OKC allowing over 51 fantasy points per game. We did mention back-to-back already for Luka Doncic. Playing over 35 minutes per night. 1.48 fantasy points per minute and a usage rating of over 35. So I'd probably lean toward taking the under against Luka Doncic tonight. SGA is another guy who's interesting. He's at 42. His projection on Roto Grinders is 39.65, so they like the under, but working in his favor is the fact that Dallas has been pretty giving to opposing combo guards, allowing over 42 fantasy points per game. So we'll call this a slight bump up in terms of DVA for SGA. Now, looking at his recent games, he went over by quite a bit, under, and then an over right before All-Star break. So maybe he was ready for a bit of a rest, a bit of a break. Maybe he comes back and plays better tonight. This is a good matchup for him. Minutes, playing 34 per game, 1.18 fantasy points per minute, and his usage, 27.62. So there you go for SGA. I'm kind of leaning toward the over here. As long as the game stays close and competitive, I think he can get there. Kristaps Porzingis, he's questionable. Not really going to look his way in this situation, being that he may not play. Al Horford, he's at 30 on PrizePicks, 29.88. This is a bit of a plus DVA situation for him, but he's got a tough matchup against Maxi Kleber, so I'd be careful with taking Al Horford. Might just be better to fade and avoid that situation. And, that's it. You only got 2 guys on each side for this game, so we can move on and start talking about the next one. God, this is a huge slate. Sorry, just had to get that out there. There's a ton of games and a ton of players here. Sorry for the video being so darn long, but I try to get you guys as much info as humanly possible here. We've got 2 guys for Golden State tonight, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, 2 guys for the Clippers, Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George. So let's start talking about that one. The game totals looking very good. You got over 230 points, we'll call it. So liking the situation in terms of game total. Spread is a little worrisome. Talking about a 7-point spread here. So not loving the spread. I'd probably give the spread an orange. I don't think that Golden State hangs around in this one. I think the Clippers, they should be at full strength. They're a much better team when they are at full strength. But in terms of any overs that I like, it looks like Steph Curry's really standing out here. He's projected at 48 on PrizePicks, 46.64 over on Roto Grinders, but the DVA is over 53. So this is a plus matchup for Steph Curry. His last few games before the All-Star break, let's take a look at them. All right, 57.2 puts him over. 47.6 close but no cigar puts him under. 46.3 under. And then 37.3 and 55.9. So yeah, he's got mostly unders in his game log, 2 overs. So liking the way that this is shaping up here for taking the over on Curry. He is a combo guard, though. The Clippers, according to this, are allowing over 53 fantasy points per game to combo guards, but I think that number's skewed a little bit. They've been beat up. No Patrick Beverley at times, no Paul George at times, no Kawhi Leonard at times. So now that they're full strength, this is going to be a much harder matchup for Curry. 1.38 fantasy points per minute, and his usage is over 33. So I like the under on Steph tonight. Paul George, he's projected at 41 on Roto Grinders, or 41 on PrizePicks and 41 on Roto Grinders. Not a plus DVA spot for him, but yeah, I'd probably lean toward the over. Kawhi Leonard, he's at 45 on Roto Grinders, 47 on PrizePicks. Leaning toward the under with him. Again, versatile forwards, getting about 38 fantasy points per game against this Golden State team. And the last guy to really talk about is Draymond Green, and he is in a negative DVA spot at 34.5, let's call it, puts him slightly under 35. So not seeing anything too drastic in terms of differences in the projections from these two sites. So overall, great game totals. Spread is worrisome. Got to put it in the orange because Clippers have a good chance here of blowing them out. Next game on the board is the Houston Rockets and the Sacramento Kings. Houston 113, Sacramento 117.5. So great game totals, over 230 combined points. Spread looking like 4.5 points here. Want to talk about a plus DVA situation, a great matchup? Well, we got to talk De'Aaron Fox, who is in a really good spot. He's projected for 45. They got him at 43.5. The DVA is at 58.43, meaning that he is in a spot where he should go well over his fantasy projection of 45. There's a ceiling here, tons of room here for De'Aaron Fox to have a big game. Now, if we start looking at his game logs, he's went over 45 in 3 out of 5 games. So looking very good there. His last game before All-Star break, 61.6. Huge game there. Going back, I don't see any recent games against Houston, so nothing really to compare to there. He's going to be playing 37 minutes. He's a combo guard, and Houston allowing over 58 fantasy points. So again, loving the matchup here. Houston, the number 2 most giving team in all the NBA to opposing combo guards. Playing over 34 minutes per game, 1.17 fantasy points per minute, and his usage is over 31. Loving this spot here for a De'Aaron Fox over. Now, John Wall and Victor Oladipo both classified as combo guards. John Wall's at 43. Victor Oladipo is at 40. Now, Roto Grinders, they like the under on both guys in this spot, but one of them is probably going to go over. It's just the nature of the beast here. I don't know which one, but if you were going to lean toward taking one or the other, I would probably lean toward John Wall, who has the higher usage rating. Crazy enough, both of these guys have a 1.12 fantasy point per minute average per game, but great spot for either guy, as Sacramento is allowing over 55 fantasy points per game to combo guards. So shaping up to be a high scoring type of game. Spread is pretty competitive, and I think that this has some upside. There's upside in this game for any of the guards. So Fox, Wall, Oladipo, those guys should really benefit from this style of game, the way that things are shaping up. But otherwise, moving on down the list here, Marvin Bagley projected at 31. He's at 29.66. Of course, we know that the Houston Rockets don't have any formidable big men in their lineup. So I think that this could be a spot where Bagley could eat and could go over. Rashawn Holmes, not on the board, not worth talking about. That's really about it. Buddy held, however you say it. He is in a negative DVA, and they like the under on Roto Grinders, so I'd probably lean toward taking the under on Buddy. But again, this game could be one of those games where it turns into a shootout, and both teams are just chucking up shots. So that's going to do it for that one. Let's see who the last game of the night is. It's going to be Phoenix versus Portland. Phoenix 115.75, Portland 111.25. I'm actually surprised that the totals on this game aren't higher. I would expect this one to be a higher total game, but looks like Phoenix does have the edge here. 4.5-point favorites on the road against Portland. All right, in terms of DVA, Damien Lillard has a great spot here, or is in a great spot. He's at 52 fantasy points on PrizePicks, at 50 over on Roto Grinders. Looking at his recent game logs, 47.9, 48, 48, 38, and 58.7. So he's went under 52 in 4 out of his last 5 games. The under on Damien Lillard looking like the way to go here, according to his game logs. No recent games against the Phoenix Suns, so we can go ahead and talk minutes. He's expected to play 37 minutes. He's a combo guard. Phoenix allowing 49.61 fantasy points per game to combo guards. And of course, Damian Lillard's one of the better combo guards. He put on a show. Him and Curry were just chucking up deep shots in that All-Star game. So very fun to watch. 1.32 fantasy points per minute for Lillard, and over 33.5 usage rating. One of the better usage rating numbers for point guards. So loving this spot here for Damian Lillard. Maybe he bounces back. I don't know, but he has been struggling to hit 52. So the unders have been the way to go on Dame. You got Enes Kanter at 36. He's at 33 over on Roto Grinders. Post-up bigs have been held in check by this Phoenix Suns squad. They're allowing just 27.23 fantasy points per game to opposing post-up bigs. So the under looking like the way to go, as Kanter will probably be matched up here with DeAndre Ayton, a big, long, abled body. Devin Booker, he's questionable. They got him at 36 on PrizePicks, 37.5 over on Roto Grinders, but not a very good DVA spot for him. Matchup's going to be tough on paper if he does play. Chris Paul, again, one of those guys who fits that distributor point guard mold, and they never have very good or convincing DVAs on their side. Chris Paul, though, should be motivated to lace him up here against Damian Lillard. He seems to raise his game to a new level, play with a chip on his shoulder as he's getting older, showing these guys that, he's not ready to hang him up just yet. So that looks like a spot where taking the over, according to Roto Grinders, is the way to go for Chris Paul. But otherwise, that's going to do it, man. What a long video. Ton of games to talk about. Quite a contrast versus yesterday's video where we only had 2 games going on, 4 teams to talk about. So I'm exhausted. I don't know about you, but hopefully you played this video back at 1.5x or faster speed so you can buzz right through it. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. This is CJ for Out of Bounds DFS. Good luck tonight as the NBA truly is back. And until the next one, we'll catch you then. Peace.